Over the past 12 and a half years, I've raised significant concerns in hearing after hearing after hearing about FISA and the FBI's shocking disregard for Americans' constitutional rights and civil liberties. I've been given basically the same answer by FBI directors and attorneys general and other officials during 3 presidential administrations involving both major political parties. The answer every time is a variation, more or less, of the following. Just trust us. Don't worry. We've got good people, law-abiding people running this, and we've got lots and lots of procedural safeguards in place to prevent this type of abuse that you're facing here. These aren't the droids you're looking for. That's what we're told. Here again today, just the last 24 hours, we got a new policy. This one's finally going to fix it, you tell us. This one's going to do it. Meanwhile, what's happened? Well, in 2019, Inspector General Horowitz issued a shocking report, confirming a lot of what I had feared over the years, but had found it difficult to prove. A report regarding Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI's secret surveillance of Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. And then a subsequent memorandum dealing with the FBI's failure to maintain these so-called Woods files, which Woods file is basically the evidentiary record underlying a FISA order request in violation of FBI policy. Year after year, and hearing after hearing, we hear of instances of noncompliance, including the disclosure just last month that the FBI illegally surveilled 19,000 donors to a congressional campaign. Americans participating in protests in the summer of 2020, Americans who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021, and even a sitting member of Congress. Hundreds of thousands of searches of Americans' private communications and information are conducted each and every year without a probable cause warrant. Frankly, without any warrant if conducted under Section 702. Now, let me be very clear. That number should not just be going down. That number should be 0. Every quote-unquote non-compliant search involving U.S. persons violates an American citizen's constitutional rights. And yet every year, the FBI claims that we should just trust the FBI to fix the problems internally. Well, first they tell us there are no problems. Then they tell us we will fix them because we've got good people and we've got new policies, and this time it's going to be different. Only later we find out that the FBI conducted more and more illegal searches in violation of Americans' constitutional rights than the last time we addressed the issue. So it's hard not to conclude that the only thing the FBI wishes it could fix here is the possibility of getting caught. This is what I find so insufferable. This is what I find so incredibly insulting. Look, I want to echo Senator Blumenthal's point a minute ago, and I hope every American can take note of this feature of this. This is unlike other court proceedings. We call it a court, and yet it doesn't have any of the trappings of an ordinary court. There is no adversarial process. We're told a moment ago by Mr. Olson that it's okay. It's okay because the FISA court has the ability to appoint an amicus anytime it feels necessary to do so. Well, why not in every case? And even if there is an amicus, what interest does the amicus have that's on par with the individuals affected? The bottom line is you collect all this data, and then after you store all that data, some of it involving communications, the content of individual phone calls, emails, text messages, whatever it is, the content, not just the metadata, but the content. You can do a backdoor search on that without a warrant predicated on probable cause. That is itself an affront to the Constitution. That is itself something that is always going to lead to constitutional violations, and it must stop. We've got an opportunity this year to make necessary reforms, and we must do it. But while we've got you here, Mr. Olson and Mr. Abate, why should we ever trust the FBI and the DOJ when it comes to this issue, whether under the current administration or under future leadership? Why should we ever trust the FBI and the DOJ, again, to police themselves under FISA when they've shown us repeatedly for more than a decade that they cannot be trusted to do so?
Senator, thank you for the question. Obviously, Section 702 is an invaluable intelligence tool. That's beyond dispute. It's also one that's very powerful, and it must be used responsibly. And I share the frustration that you express with the lack of compliance that we've seen in past years from the FBI. I'm not here to defend those compliance problems. What I can tell you is that those compliance problems predate some of the very significant changes that the FBI has put in place. I will not say that compliance problems will be zero next year. We are not saying it, as I think you mentioned, that we say we're done. This is an ongoing process. We will continue to try to improve. We will work with you and your staff and other members of Congress to make sure that we're implementing procedures and policies, training, and other measures to continue to drive down these errors and compliance problems. But in the end, the tool itself is so incredibly important to our national security that I believe that its essential effectiveness must be preserved.
Mr. Abadi?
Senator, thank you. I share your concerns as well, and I take this seriously. And with regard to the FISA 702, since I've been in this role and under the leadership of Director Wray, we've made significant changes, ones that have never been made before, and there has been a lot of progress, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to keep driving ahead, continue to implement reforms as required, taking guidance and counsel from the committee and other members. With regard to Crossfire Hurricane, what happened there was wholly unacceptable. We agree with the findings set forth by Inspector General Horowitz and Special Counsel Durham. We've acknowledged that in the past, and that's 2017 and earlier that conduct occurred, not under Director Wray's leadership or when I was in this position. We have an entirely new leadership team. We've implemented very strong corrective actions, the poor decision-making, the grave errors of judgment, the misconduct, the lack of rigor investigatively that occurred there, totally unacceptable. We reject it. We hold people accountable for that now. And everything that we've done on the work, on the mission since that time, we've worked to avoid those mistakes and apply the lessons learned of the past. And anyone we find who goes against that, they are not going to work in the FBI, and they will be held accountable for that period.
Great to know. Congress has got to fix this problem and stop trusting the surveillance state to fix it. It can't, it won't. We know that because it hasn't.